Battletoads is a beat-em-up video game developed by Delilah Studios under the supervision of Rare and is published by Xbox Game Studios. This is a reboot of the original 1991 Battletoads game, and it is out now on Steam, Xbox Game Pass and Windows platforms. Now, after seeing very early gameplay trailers for Battletoads and also being a big fan of the 1991 original, I must admit I was not impressed with what I saw and thought the game was going to be an absolute flop. Thankfully, I am happy to say that this was a case of bad trailers rather than a bad game, and the finished product is actually a hilarious adventure that gives loads of good winks and nods to the original game, but it is also very much its own game. The plot for the game has us catching up with Battletoads Zitz, Rash and Pimple, as they discover that for the past 26 years they haven't actually been living the life of superheroes, but have actually instead been stuck in a fantasy simulator inside a massive bunker. After escaping the bunker, the Battletoads soon realise that they're not famous anymore and have to resort to less glamorous jobs like IT support and massaging aliens. Yeah, you heard that right, I said aliens. Just like in the original Battletoads, most of the game plays out like any other beat 'em up, where players kick the crap out of any enemies unfortunate enough to get in the Toad's way. Up to 3 players can fight through the game with drop in and drop out co-op, while solo players can take on the story by themselves. Strangely enough, there is no online co-op, which is a big miss here, but I have read that it may come in a future update, and I hope that this is the case, as having no online co-op option is a strange choice for this type of game. The single player mode lets you switch between the Toads using the D-pad. If one dies, you'll automatically be swapped for another one, and their icon will get a countdown timer that determines when they can be swapped back into the action again. If your Battletoad dies while his other 2 partners are still recovering, then you all die and will need to go back to a checkpoint, which thankfully are all pretty well spaced out. Combat is entertaining, if a bit limited. You have 3 attack buttons, a quick attack which is perfect for combos, a launch attack that pops enemies into the air which is perfect for air juggles, and a more powerful attack. The latter can either be charged for a single hefty attack that can stun enemies, even ones who love to block all your normal attacks, or it can even be added to the end of your combo for a final powerful finisher. And in typical Battletoads style, many of these attacks make your Toad morph into different shapes. Pimple can turn into a freight train, while Zitz can leap into the air and turn into a pneumatic drill and attack his enemies from below, and Rash, the joker of the bunch, he can transform his hand into a giant rubber chicken. Yes, that's right, a rubber chicken. While these moves are entertaining, each Toad's overall move set is a bit limited. So to get the most out of the game's combat, you will have to get used to swapping your Toads around and changing up your moves, which is very important as you get graded for each battle, and part of that grade, which is given at the end of the level, is determined by your combos and with how many Toads you used. The game is not just a simple beat 'em up. There are also a handful of vehicle-based stages like the legendary Turbo Tunnel bike ride, which is played from a behind the Toad perspective and which isn't quite as difficult as it was back in the day, thank God. And you also get some side-scrolling ones that I found to be just as fun. These levels are a nice change of pace, and the game also provides you with regular checkpoints so as not to make them too frustrating. On top of all this, there is also some more hilarious mini stages thrown around too, which seem at times like they are all in there to make you laugh. Some of the ones near the start of the game made me laugh, as did the strange take on rock paper scissors that occurs in the second of the game's 4 acts. You even get some tough bullet hell space shooting levels thrown in, which I found was a very nice pleasant surprise for me, as I like these type of games. But none of these smaller levels are annoying, and I thought they were a welcome addition because they further enforce the game's slapstick comedy and also break up the fighting sections. In terms of the presentation, I have 0 complaints here. It is well written, it looks nice, and the music is a nice collection of rock and metal riffs which suit the Battletoads' personality. The only thing that may have some people concerned based on what I have already said is the level of difficulty. Not to worry though, as Battletoads has 3 distinct difficulty settings, allowing you to make the game as hard or as easy as you'd like. Hardcore fans of the original will want to bump the difficulty up to the highest setting, though it's worth bearing in mind that the beat 'em up sections are significantly busier than they used to be, and on higher difficulties it can be very tricky keeping track of all of the projectile attacks being chucked around. So if you like the difficulty of the original, then you'll definitely want to stick it on the harder setting for a much harder challenge. Meanwhile, for those who are new to the series and have heard about the stories of the original's legendary difficulty, then there are plenty of ways to make the experience easier for you. From the lower difficulty level to an option to turn on invincibility for certain sections for those who keep dying too often, which is perfect for the younger gamers. There are also other little problems that may annoy some players, like certain stages that go on for a little bit too long and can feel like a bit of a grind. There are also a regular series of puzzles which you will need to solve to open doors. These aren't much fun, and while they seem to be designed to break up the action, instead I think they may frustrate most players, as they will have bought the game to fight people and don't necessarily want the action to be broken up all the time. Another thing I found strange was the Dark Queen, who was the main villain from the original game. Here she has been totally changed, which I found strange. She appears like much younger than in the original Battletoads, which is strange again because seeing as this game takes place in the future. I just personally preferred the original version much more than the one we got here. Although I must admit she was actually voiced very well, just like the rest of the cast. I felt there was way more good here than bad, and it results in a game that has completely turned my expectations around, especially considering how worried the early trailers had me feel. But rest assured, now that the Battletoads are finally back, I really hope that this isn't the last we'll hear or see of them, and I hope that we get a sequel. From what I can see, it's doing quite well so far, so maybe Delilah will give us that sequel in the end. Battletoads is without a doubt one of the funniest games of the year, and it is a pretty sweet beat 'em up to boot. It does have the occasional lull when things start to feel a little repetitive, and is a bit on the short side with not too much to return to apart from some collectible diamonds throughout the stages. But for £20 or free on the excellent Game Pass, Battletoads is a very entertaining experience, especially in co-op, and it's well worth your time. I'm going to give Battletoads a strong 7 out of 10. Well guys, thank you as always. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button and hit that like button. It also does really help the channel. And I will see you guys on the next Cobra video. Take care of yourselves and bye bye.